This video is in continuation with the topic with which we are dealing, that is the factors affecting photosynthesis. And we have studied in the previous video that how light is affecting or is acting as a limiting factor. Although light really acts as a limiting factor because the intensity of the light is important, but it is more important for the shady plants, whereas the plants which are in high intensity of light, they light is seldom or very rarely a limiting factor. Coming to the next factor, that is the carbon dioxide concentration. Now carbon dioxide concentration, by that we mean that the amount of carbon dioxide which is available to the plant for the process of photosynthesis. Because we have understood in the previous videos or the process of photosynthesis that the fixation of carbon dioxide takes place with the help of Kelvin cycle. So the level of carbon dioxide is very important for photosynthesis. And if there is an insufficient supply of CO2 available for fixation, then the reaction cannot proceed at the maximum rate. So the concentration, because the concentration of carbon dioxide is dependent on various factors. It is the fixation, and fixation is through the Kelvin cycle. This fixation takes place with the help of Kelvin cycle. So if it is affected, then obviously the Kelvin cycle will be affected, and that is what is the photosynthesis. Now, the rate of photosynthesis as seen over here in the figure, you can make out that as the concentration of carbon dioxide is increased, there is an increase in the rate of photosynthesis. So A and B shows that there is a linear relationship between the concentration of carbon dioxide and the rate of photosynthesis. When we say linear relationship, it means as the rate of or the concentration of carbon dioxide is increased, there is an increase in the rate of photosynthesis. Now, why this rate of photosynthesis is increased? It is due to the greater binding of Rubisco enzyme with carbon dioxide. So, what is there? If more carbon dioxide is available, more amount of Rubisco, that is ribulose, carboxylase, oxygenase. Rubisco enzyme will have more binding, because we have studied that Rubisco, although it can act as carboxylase when it binds with carbon, or as oxygenase when it binds with oxygen, but it has natural affinity for carbon dioxide. So if more carbon dioxide is available, it will bind more with it. The Rubisco enzyme will have more chances of binding with CO2 and then entering into the Kelvin cycle. So this is a direct connect between the Rubisco enzyme and the carbon dioxide. Now, though the concentration of carbon dioxide in the atmosphere is very, very low, the it is very well known fact that the concentration of carbon dioxide is low, but if we increase the concentration by photosynthesis, that is the carbon dioxide by 0.05% increase, if it is increased by this much percentage, there is a direct increase. If suppose in 0.05 increase in CO2 concentration, there is an increase in rate of photosynthesis also. At the same time, we have to understand that if we increase this concentration further, then the rate of photosynthesis does not increase, but it causes a harmful effect on the plant. Why it is causing harmful effect on the plant? Because at very high CO2 level, the stomatal pores which are present on the leaves, these are the stomatal pores. So if very high CO2 concentration, at very high CO2 concentration, carbon dioxide concentration, the stomatal pores close, and this or closes or they get shrink. Now, if the stomatal pore close or shrink, the water, there is less water to be released, and it affects dually. That means it is actually lowering the tree's cooling power, and also the photosynthesis is lowered down considerably. So we find that there is a correlation between the concentration of an increase or linear relationship between the concentration of carbon dioxide and the rate of photosynthesis. In if the concentration is less, then this the carbon dioxide act as a limiting factor. Now, if we compare the effect of carbon dioxide concentration on C3 plants and C4 plants, we know that at the C4 plants, because of the crans anatomy, they are more easily, because there is better conversion of carbon dioxide or more fixation of carbon dioxide, therefore they yield more. Now, C3 plants, on because they directly enter into the Kelvin cycle, some of the Rubisco enzyme also combines with oxygen, thereby reducing their efficiency. So, we find that at low intensity, both do not respond to high carbon dioxide concentration, because over there there is not much effect. But however, there at light intensity there is an increase in the rate of photosynthesis in both, but the saturation for C4 plants is at 360, whereas over here it is for C3 it is 450 mu per liter. So we find that C3 plants show an increase greater than the rate of photosynthesis by 58%. There is an increase of 58% of rate of photosynthesis when the CO2 concentration is doubled in case of C3. Now, this has been because when we increase the concentration of carbon dioxide by double, the rate of photosynthesis increases by 58%. So, this property has been used commercially in the case of C3 plants, for example, to get better yields. And with high concentration of CO2, these plants are known to give better yield. For example, the tomato, bell pepper, etc., have been utilized with this technique to produce or to give more yield. The next factor that affects is the temperature. Temperature, when we plot a graph, and this is again the rate of photosynthesis. The curve obtained over here is this. This is the optimum. Now, when we come to understand the pattern or the effect of temperature on this rate of photosynthesis, we know that the photosynthetic process is it involves various enzymes. So the various enzymes which take part in this are greatly affected by the increase or decrease of temperature. So the optimum temperature range for photosynthesis is 35 to 40 degree Celsius. At this temperature, the plants are known to have good or effective rate of photosynthesis. Now, as we see over here, the rate of photosynthesis increases with the increase in temperature. As the temperature is increasing, the rate of photosynthesis is increased. But after reaching an optimum level, if the temperature is increased further, we do not observe any increase in the rate of photosynthesis. Instead, it goes down. Now, the reason is it causes the denaturation of enzymes. So, at very high temperatures, the rate of photosynthesis goes down or decreases. The reason is denaturation of enzymes. So this denaturation actually results into the decrease in the rate of photosynthesis because enzymes are involved at various levels of the process of photosynthesis. Now, when we compare the C3 and C4 plants, we find C4 plants show high rate of photosynthesis at high temperature. Obviously, we have studied that because of the Cran's anatomy, the C4 plants are not much affected with an increase in the temperature because they have a different kind of arrangement of the cells, and C3 plants are more effective. Now, in C3 plants, rubisco activity is limited by the carbon dioxide concentration, and as the temperature increases in the C3 plants, the affinity of the enzyme with carbon dioxide decreases. So what is happening in C4 plants, because of the different kind of arrangement of the cells, bundle sheet cells, and an effective mechanism where the carbon dioxide is trapped and is converted into organic acid, and then it enters into the bundle sheet cells for the Kelvin cycle. The C3 plants do not have such mechanism. So what is happening when the temperature increases? On increasing the temperature, or when we say when the temperature increases, the uh, the it is limited by the CO2 concentration. So limiting factor over here will be CO2 concentration. Also, it decreases the affinity. Rubisco enzyme has affinity for carbon dioxide, but this affinity also decreases the affinity with CO2. Now, also happens, denaturation of enzyme. So, due to all these factors, as the temperature is increased, the CO2 concentration acts as a limiting factor. The increase in temperature also causes the decreasing the affinity with carbon dioxide. Also, it causes the denaturation of enzyme. As a result, the C3 plants show a considerable decrease in the rate of photosynthesis as the temperature is increased. Now, the last factor, which is very important again, is the water. Now, when we talk of water as a limiting factor over here, the water actually, it is one of the major reactants in the light reaction, because the splitting of the water provides with the protons, and also the oxygen is released as the byproduct, and the electrons are continuously supplied to the photosystems. Now, the effect of water is not having direct effect on the plant, but it is on the photosynthesis. Now, what is happening is, when the concentration or when the amount of water is less, then it causes the stomata to close. It is a stress on the plant. So as a result, the stomata shrink, and due to the shrinking of the stomata, the carbon dioxide is made unavailable because there is no passage for the gaseous exchange. So the carbon dioxide becomes availability becomes less, and also the stress of water, that means if the amount of water again is low, then it causes the leaves to wilt or shrink, and it reduces the surface area of the leaf, and as a result sufficient amount or effective exchange of gases is not possible, which again directly affects the rate of photosynthesis because less amount of carbon dioxide will be available. So water, when we see over here, if concentration of water is low, so it causes the stomatal pore to close, stomatal pores shrink or close depending upon the amount and concentration of water. Secondly, the leaves wilt. So what is happening when the stomatal pores shrink? The concentration or the intake of carbon dioxide is reduced. Also, when the leaves wilt, the surface area available for the gaseous exchange is reduced. So therefore, the rate of photosynthesis is also decrease. So various factors affect the rate of photosynthesis. For the plant to have a normal rate of photosynthesis or effective rate of photosynthesis, all the factors must be present in optimum concentration to bring about a effective or efficient rate of photosynthesis.